Donald Trump's return to power has reignited trade tensions as he imposes aggressive tariffs on key trading partners, shaking global markets and sparking fears of an economic slowdown. On February 1st, 2025, Trump announced sweeping tariffs, slapping a 25% tax on all goods imported from Canada and Mexico and a 10% tariff on Chinese imports, a move he claims will bring jobs back to America. But these tariffs are already sending shockwaves across industries, causing immediate volatility in financial markets, disrupting supply chains, and prompting retaliation from affected nations. With trade now more interconnected than ever, the consequences of these tariffs will not just be felt in the United States, but across the world. The first cracks appeared in global markets within minutes of the announcement. The Dow Jones Industrial Average plunged nearly 900 points, while the Nasdaq and S&P 500 suffered their steepest one-day declines in months. European markets weren't spared either, with the Stoxx Europe 600 index dropping sharply as investors braced for an economic ripple effect. Meanwhile, commodity prices, particularly aluminum and steel, skyrocketed as US industries dependent on these materials scrambled to assess the impact. US physical aluminum premiums surged past $990 per metric ton, an all-time high, given that 70% of US aluminum imports come from Canada, now subject to the hefty tariff. Businesses that rely on imported raw materials, from car manufacturers to aerospace firms, are now facing increased production costs, raising fears of higher consumer prices and potential layoffs. For the average American, the tariffs may initially seem like a distant issue, but their impact will soon hit household budgets. The Tax Foundation estimates that the 10% tariff on Chinese goods alone would add $170 per year to the average American household's expenses, and with additional tariffs on North American goods, costs could rise even higher. Grocery prices are expected to surge, as nearly two-thirds of the vegetables imported into the US come from Mexico, meaning shoppers will pay significantly more for fresh produce. Gas prices are also set to rise, with the 10% tariff on Canadian energy imports expected to add up to 50 cents per gallon at the pump, further straining American consumers who are already grappling with inflation. The Biden administration had focused on stabilizing inflation, but these new tariffs could undo years of economic recovery, pushing everyday prices higher and slowing wage growth. Industries across the US are bracing for impact. Automakers, heavily reliant on imported parts from Mexico and Canada, are now facing major cost increases, which could drive up car prices and reduce demand. The American tech industry, which imports billions of dollars worth of components from China, may also take a hit as manufacturing costs climb. The banking sector is preparing for potential interest rate adjustments as the Federal Reserve monitors the inflationary effects of the tariffs. If consumer confidence drops and businesses struggle to absorb higher costs, the Fed may be forced to raise interest rates again, potentially slowing economic growth and making borrowing more expensive for businesses and individuals alike. Outside of the US, the reaction has been swift. Canada, Mexico, and the European Union have condemned the tariffs, with all three preparing retaliatory measures. Canada has signaled it will impose counter tariffs on American goods, targeting industries that rely on cross-border trade, including agriculture and manufacturing. Mexico, calling the tariffs a clear violation of the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, has announced its own trade restrictions on US goods, particularly in the energy and agriculture sectors. The European Union has warned of a strong retaliatory response, with officials hinting at new tariffs on American exports, particularly on agricultural products, tech, and consumer goods. These retaliatory tariffs could severely impact US exports, forcing American farmers, manufacturers, and corporations to find new markets or absorb heavy financial losses. One of the biggest questions looming over global trade is how China will respond. While Trump's tariffs on China are lower than those imposed on North American partners, the Chinese government has historically retaliated swiftly against such moves. Experts warn that China could impose its own tariffs on American agricultural exports, particularly on soybeans and corn, sectors that heavily depend on Chinese buyers. Another possible response could be increased restrictions on American companies operating in China, further straining an already fragile US-China trade relationship. Beyond direct economic consequences, Trump's tariffs are reshaping geopolitical alliances. Many countries that once relied on the stability of US trade agreements are now reconsidering their economic strategies. Canada and Mexico have already begun diversifying their trade relationships, strengthening economic ties with the European Union and the Asia-Pacific region to reduce dependence on American markets. The European Union and China are likely to accelerate their trade negotiations, bypassing the United States to establish new economic alliances that could shift global power dynamics. While Trump argues that these tariffs will boost domestic manufacturing and bring jobs back to America, economists remain deeply skeptical. A similar approach was taken during his first term, but studies found that the Trump-era tariffs led to significant job losses in industries that relied on imports, offsetting any gains in protected sectors. If history repeats itself, American businesses will struggle with higher costs, consumers will face rising prices, and the broader economy could slow down significantly. In the long term, these tariffs could trigger a new wave of inflation, worsening existing economic instability and reducing global trade flows. Many businesses operate on just-in-time supply chains, meaning even short-term disruptions can lead to major financial losses. If trading partners impose tariffs in retaliation, it could shrink international demand for American goods, ultimately hurting the very industries the tariffs were meant to protect. The coming months will be critical. If negotiations between the US and affected countries fail, we could see a full-blown trade war, potentially leading to global recession like conditions similar to those of the 2008 financial crisis. The US government may try to soften the impact with subsidies for affected industries, but this would only increase national debt and could lead to additional financial instability. Meanwhile, consumers, businesses, and governments around the world are anxiously watching how this economic standoff will unfold. At the heart of this crisis is a fundamental question. Are these tariffs a bold move to protect American jobs or a reckless gamble that could destabilize the global economy? Trump's latest policies have set the stage for one of the biggest economic showdowns in recent history. Whether this strategy succeeds or backfires will depend on how the world's leading economies respond in the weeks and months ahead. One thing is certain: the impact of these tariffs will not be contained to the US. The entire global economy is now in the crossfire. If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into global economics, politics, and financial trends. What do you think? Will these tariffs help the US economy or push us toward another trade war? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for more updates, and until next time, stay informed and stay ahead.